Welcome back to the Exceptional Educators Podcast. I'm Stephanie. Today, we're continuing our look at addressing challenging behaviors in early childhood settings. We'll explore how supervisors can guide teachers through proven strategies, building relationships, setting routines, using positive reinforcement, and adding visual supports. We'll add a touch on how observation and documentation can also help teachers understand what children need to adjust their approach. By now, we've all seen plenty of tantrums, biting, noncompliance, and even aggressive language. These behaviors are typical for young children still learning how to express their emotions because they use that behavior as communication. With the right support, teachers can turn that into opportunities for growth. Leaders, we understand that this is our job and not a quick fix. It's to help teachers reflect, adapt, and grow through everyday challenges. So now let's look at building relationships. We talked about it last time, but that relationships drive everything in an early childhood setting. Think about walking into a great business. When you walk into that business, they speak to you, but understanding how you're greeted and treated well, that's how you respond to being in that environment. Well, classrooms work the same way. When children feel safe, they feel welcomed, they're more cooperative and also more confident. So think about how to support teachers like this. Promoting one-on-one moments. Even if it's just a few moments, focus on how to move around with that child. Being that administrator, being that example of modeling that. Moving around, talking to children when they're on the playground, when they're in the art center, when they're in blocks, getting down on that child's level, but focusing on maybe a few minutes with each child as they move around in the classroom. Another way is paying attention to understanding composure in the classroom. Now, administrators can do this by really letting the teachers know behaviors that trigger. We all know that teachers come into the classroom with whatever they come in with, but sometimes we need to help teachers manage their own reactions to children's behavior. Adults also need support in this area. Know that children mirror the calm that they see. Encouraging documentation is another way. Tracking the patterns of behavior in order to guide reflection. When teachers connect before they correct, challenging behaviors often fade. Another area is consistently helping children feel safe and in control by setting clear expectations and consistent routines. Predictable routines and clear expectations reduce anxiety and impulsivity in young children. We can guide teachers as administrators and leaders by clarifying these clear rules, by using simple positive language like when we listen, when others talk, we don't talk. Or observing routines by helping smooth out tough times like cleanup or transition, guiding teachers to understand how to move those transitions along, making sure those clear routines and expectations are delineated so children know what to expect. And then we can also look at our data, making sure that we reflect on our data, having that documentation to know when those behaviors arise. Is it when the child arrives? Is it during a transition? Or is it during the end of the day? Having that clear data and understanding how to come back and reflect on that data with your teachers as an administrator also makes it clear to understand what we need to do in order to curb behaviors in the classroom. When classrooms run on clear expectations and steady routines, children find their rhythm. We all know every teacher has their own style and strength, but by fostering a culture of support and collaboration, we help teachers build confidence and competence in addressing challenging behaviors. Next, my colleague will explain just a little further on what we need to do in dealing with those challenging behaviors. Lisa?
So let's explore another set of strategies that's definitely going to help children thrive in early learning environment, which is positive reinforcement and visual support. And so just hearing what my colleague Stephanie says, she provided a lot of effective strategies that you as a coach and a leader can definitely use to support educators. Because when these both are used together, it's going to allow the classroom culture to be able to be clear. It could be encouraging along with creating those developmental responsive practices for children. And so let's start off first with positive reinforcement. We all know that this is going to be always a powerful way to definitely shape those behaviors that focus on what children do well. And so as a supervisor, because my colleague gave a lot of strategies, I kept hearing, she kept saying data. And so one strategy you could use is that when we use like the spotlight specific behaviors, you could go in, do the observation, and encourage teachers by naming the practice that they implement that supported that behavior. Let me give you an example. So, for example, if you observe a teacher said, "Thank you for helping clean up the blocks, Mateo," giving that specific strategy and naming it, it allow you to give, okay, you did that. And when you did that with Mateo, guess what? It's helping Mateo build that self-awareness along with being pride of doing that approach and behavior. So it's very important that, yeah, do observation is to be very specific. What I'm going to be observing, how I'm going to use the specific behavior and the language and talk about linking it back. When you did this behavior as a teacher, it supported the outcome of this child. Because guess what? At the overall, we want the teacher and the child to be successful as well. And so the next one, which is one of my favorite things that I use all the time when I was a teacher, is visual support. Let me tell you, as a teacher, I use that all the time. And I know we're coming with perspective as a coach and a leader. You want to make sure when you're supporting your teachers, your educators, provide them resources that will fit first of all, their temperament. I had to bring that up. You also got to think about that environment of that classroom. Will this resource or this visual support will meet the need of that classroom? Because there's a lot of different resource and visual support around the nation. Like we could Google right now, we could find what, but would that fit that teacher? Be very strategic because that way, like my colleague Stephanie was saying about observation, analyze what will work best for that teacher. But I'm going to give my colleague Leida, I'm going to ask her a question. And then I'm going to give you an example of one of my favorite visual supports that I observed. So Leida, when you were a supervisor or a leader, can you share one visual support that you have used that have seen a noticeable impact and what signs told you that that visual support was effective for that individual teacher? Leida?
So thank you, Lisa. Well, let me just say that the visual support I'm going to share with you touches upon everything that Lisa and Stephanie have shared. So one of the things was I had teachers put all the children's name in small tags and they had a ring that they kept with them. So every time that they did a positive reinforcement with that child, or perhaps they greeted that child in the morning, or were able to get one-on-one time, they took off that child's name from the ring and put it back in a basket. So at the end of the day, or even at the end of a specific playtime, they could say, during this time, I acknowledged 5 children. During this time, I reinforced these rules with these children or gave them their kudos. So they were able to see their own progression. So maybe they only did 3 children, but by the end of the week, they were consistently doing at least 5 to 7 children, and they continue to grow their practice. So that visual as well as physical prompt for the teacher gave them something to anchor themselves in that practice. So many teachers found it helpful because then they knew, oh, wait a minute, I did these 7 children. I need to make sure I hit the other 5 before the end of the day. So it gave them that opportunity to kind of spread their love around the classroom, which is always critical when we're talking about early childhood connections.
That is a great example of a visual that definitely is reinforcing those behaviors by praising and encouraging children, making a classroom of culture of encouragement and recognizing those expected behaviors. Let me ask you this, coaches. You probably have a teacher that's saying, I have difficulty helping children solve problems. Guess what? I'm going to share with you a resource that I have used before and share when I have worked with teachers. And it's actually coming from the National Center of Pyramid Model Innovation. And we will add the link in the description. And they created something called the solution kit. And so this solution kit is a visual prompt that supports children to problem solve and learn those skills. What I love about it, example of a skill is for them, for example, wait and take turns or get a timer or stop, say please stop or just using kind words. However, what I have seen is an action when the children have problem, the teacher said, what should we do to help us solve our problem? And the kids already knew in the classroom, oh, we got to get the solution kit. Exactly. And as a teacher and as a coach, we need to encourage and model for the educators to how to implement, how to introduce it, encourage them how to use that in the learning environment. Because this example, this problem solving solution kit from the National Center for Pyramid Model and it definitely is going to encourage the consistency of social emotional support. And one thing I do want to share with you, hey, it's available for classroom setting along with home setting. And the most important thing, in many languages. So you got to check it out. So as a leader, remember that we want to model these strategies. We want to observe teachers implement those practices and take a moment, like my colleague Stephanie said earlier, take the time to reflect together. What is working well and what can we take the teacher to the next level to be able to help our children? So remember, when positive reinforcement and visual support are used together, it's going to create a learning environment that is both nurturing and along with structure. So, hey, can I pass it to my colleague Leila to wrap us up?
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie and Lisa, for some great strategies for supervisors and leaders to use. So just to summarize, addressing challenging behaviors in early childhood settings really does require a multiple tools and strategies in your toolkit, and you need to use them interchangeably because what works today doesn't always work tomorrow. So building those positive relationships, setting those clear expectations and routines, and as well as using positive reinforcements and using visual supports are one of the ways teachers support children's behavior. As supervisors and coaches, it is your job to support, mentor, and empower teachers to create those caring and consistent, engaging learning environments that suit the needs of those children. So again, thank you for joining us today. If you found this episode helpful, we encourage you to subscribe, like, and share it with your fellow educators and parents. We invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section. Remember, every child and teacher deserves a supportive team behind them. Thank you for tuning in and keep building those positive connections. If you want this information in Spanish, type Español in the comments. This has been the Exceptional Education Podcast, and through research-based practices, we empower early care and education leaders to grow strong roots, bloom with confidence, and soar with purpose. Until next time, keep nurturing those little minds.